Hello everyone, I'm YYan from Indiana University, and I would like to talk about the embedding of scientific periodicals. In Science of Science, many measurements have been done through network framework. But network is open to discrete and only give us sparse representation of the entities. Here we ask whether we can obtain more useful representation of entities beyond the network. To explain our work, I think we need to talk about the neural word embedding first. Neural word embedding is a powerful, unsupervised learning method. It can learn useful and dense representation of words by using a neural network. The neural network estimates a language model, which can be considered as a statistical model that captures this conditional probability of the target word given its context. It is often assumed that the conditional probability can be estimated by a simple vector operations, like the dot product between word vectors. And then we can delegate the job of estimating the vector to a simple neural network. An intriguing feature of the word embedding is that it seems to translate semantic relationships into geometric ones. In other words, there seem to be vectors that capture specific semantic relationships like gender or verb tense or country capital relationships. And this also means that we can use these semantic axes as a measuring stick. Once we pick a reasonable pair of antonyms, we can define a semantic axis. Then any words can be projected onto this axis, and their location in this axis can be measured. Here, although sunrise or zombies are not the words that describe emotional state, we can still estimate how happy or sad they are. In our previous paper, we showed that with this approach, we can estimate the word level sentiment really well, and even detect the semantic change of words across communities. For instance, if we examine two subreddits, Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4, and the word Mario with respect to various semantic axes in each community, we can see that the word Mario is used in a more positive way in Nintendo Switch subreddit. Here is another nice example from this paper. They show that if you measure the location of musical genres from word embedding space, they roughly matches the result from a social survey. In a recent study, researchers could find semantic axes that represent properties of materials and could predict properties of new materials. So, the embedding approaches seem to be really useful in many applications. Can we then apply embedding methods to science of science? For instance, can we learn meaningful embedding of all kinds of entities in science, like authors, or papers, journals? And in doing so, we may be able to perform all kinds of crazy new measurements on them. Like we can measure distance between any set of entities. We may be able to perform analogies between entities, or identify meaningful semantic axes. So as a proof of concept, we try a much simpler task, which is embedding periodicals like journals and conferences. We do that because they are excellent units for studying disciplinary organizations. So how do we do it? We could potentially use the text information, but here we use the information in the network. The thing is, the idea of word embedding doesn't require actual words or sentences. We just need a set of entities where we can extract many target and context pairs. In other words, if you can obtain many sentences of journals, then we can obtain the embedding as well. To do that, we first build a citation network between all papers in our dataset, and then generate many random walks that follow random citations, and then translate them into journal citation trails. Now we have sentences. This is actually similar to the deep walk method, except that we use a network between papers to learn embedding of the journals and conferences. In doing so, we can leverage the rich information in the paper citation network. Okay, first of all, here is a 2D representation of the embedding space by using the t-SNE method. The colors are from the UCSD map of science categories, and as you can see, the embedding space captures the UCSD categories really well. But at the same time, the map also reveals interesting details. For instance, here we can see an island of anthropology and archaeology in the middle of the social sciences cluster. But actually they are classified as earth science by the UCSD map of science. Indeed, these fields are closely related to both, right? Here is another interesting cluster about parasite research. And it reveals the highly interdisciplinary nature of the research, which involves not only the biological sciences, but also chemistry and social sciences. You can find many interesting examples from the map, so check out this interactive visualization here and our paper here. Okay then, can we perform analogy task like word embedding. Here, unlike word embedding, we do not have ground truth analogies. So what we are showing here are examples of analogy graphs. These graphs are obtained by choosing a focal periodical and then identifying the result of analogy query defined by two pole periodicals. For instance, if we start from a computational social science conference, Ic2s2, and move towards machine learning and away from the sociology, we arrived at EMNLP, a natural language processing conference, and then the other machine learning conferences such as ICML or NeurIFs. And if we go the other way, we arrived at Social Forces, a sociology journal. So here are more examples. As you can see, the embedding produces reasonable analogical result. And this may remind you this famous XKCD comic. Sociology maybe just applies psychology, right? And eventually everything maybe just applies physics. But would scientific fields actually line up like this in the embedding space? We can check. So consider social sciences and humanities at one end, and then mathematics and physics as the other. We calculate the average vector from each pole, and then we can project every periodical vector onto this axis and measure where it is. And the result looks like this. We start from social sciences, and then health, brain, medical specialties, biology, chemistry, biotechnology, and mathematics and physics. So it followed the XKCD comic pretty well. And we can pick other axes too. In the second example, we pick social sciences and biological sciences as the two poles. Then all the disciplines rearrange themselves. Here, note that EE and CS and mathematics and physics are actually very close to social sciences, contrary to the first example. So they move around based on which axis we pick. And I think it represents the high-dimensional nature of the embedding space. So with these semantic axes, we can conduct novel measurements. With the traditional classification systems, the best resolution we can have is the resolution of the classification system, the finest category in the classification system. But with embedding, we can quantitatively estimate the position of periodicals with respect to any semantic axes, like biology to physics or social science to biology, and so on. Although I'll not go into much details of this result, here we ask whether we can test the hierarchy of the sciences hypothesis proposed by Auguste Comte and other social scientists, and measure where the highly cited papers tend to emerge within a field. Again, this new measurement is possible because of the embedding's continuous nature and the ability to encode semantic relationships into geometric ones. I'd like to thank my co-authors here, as well as Air Force Office of Scientific Research for funding this research. You can find the preprint here, as well as the interactive visualization. Thank you for watching, and hope you find something interesting or useful from this talk.